Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first of our six-part series on an introduction to the best suite for executive functioning. I am Michelle Wild. I know many of you. Good morning, Annie. Hi. Thank you for joining us. I am hoping that my cohort, Christy, will be joining us. She's having some technical issues today. So hopefully she will be able to get through the system. But for right now, you are kind of just stuck with me. So, welcome everyone. Give us a quick shout out in the chat where you are from, if you don't mind, and if you have any exposure at all to the best suite. I would appreciate getting some of that information up front. So, have you seen the best suite? Do you use the best suite? Give me just a quick shout out in the chat so I have an idea of who we have with us today. That would be great. Yep. Theoretically, I've used the suite. Jan, very funny. Ha ha ha. Jan is our Android user and app helper extraordinaire. Tony, no? Okay, good. Other people, what is your experience? Betsy, hey, Betsy, welcome. Good to see you. We've missed you. Okay, so basically, what I would like to do today is I want to introduce you to the Best Suite, what it is. I'm not really going to show you, hey Barb, how's it going? I'm not going to show you very many screens today. This is a six-part series, and it's designed to give you an introduction today. And then with each week, as we go through it, we're going to do a deeper dive into each one of the apps within the suite. So, as we get started, one of the things that I wanted to do was do a quick review on executive function. Many of you probably were not in our last webinar series where it was called the building blocks. And we talked in our last webinar about executive functioning, what executive functioning is, and how it's often impacted after a brain injury. So, what we're doing now today is talking about the best suite and how it relates to executive functioning. We also have a different webinar series that is not related to the suite at all. That's going to start in a couple of weeks, and that's going to do a deep dive into the individual skills that make up executive function. So, you may want to check out the homepage of our website. There's a link there that will take you to the webinar registrations. You've already seen at least part of it because you're here. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Okay. All right. So let's get started with our introduction to the best suite for executive functioning. We're going to start with what is executive functioning. Executive functioning has a lot to do with the frontal lobes of the brain. It's a very complex system that often gets disrupted after brain injury. Not everyone without a brain injury has a great executive functioning system, but after a brain injury, this is one of the common sort of complex areas that often gets impacted. So, what is executive dysfunction then? It's basically a term for the range of cognitive, behavioral, and emotional difficulties that often occur after a brain injury that have really a profound impact on every aspect of your everyday life. So, when we look at some of the different areas of executive function, we see there's organization, there's planning, there's self-control, or some of you may know that as self-regulation. I always talk about self-regulation a lot. Time management. We've got mental flexibility and working memory. So these are sort of the six primary areas of executive functioning. There are some other areas, decision making and things like that, that are a little bit more complex, but these are kind of the primary six areas that we talk about. Okay. Now, before we go any further, would you share with us, can you relate to problems in any of these areas? Go ahead and put a little something in the chat for us so that we know that you can actually relate to some of the challenges that we've mentioned here. So we've got organization, planning, Planning can relate to self-regulation, can relate to initiation. All sorts of different things are involved in each of these, actually. Self-control, um, mental flexibility. So Tony says most of them. Okay, good. Anybody else want to share that you most? Self-control is probably the only one that isn't. Okay. I can relate to them all at various times during my history. Excellent. So I'm just going to respond to Jan. Self-control is probably the one that isn't most relatable. Let me just mention that self-control is in one of the things I was doing yesterday, we were talking about just stopping when you realize that you need to stop. That awareness, all of that is part of self-control. So Jan, that may not be you, but I just wanted to mention that that is one of those areas that is important. So traditionally, these executive functioning skills have been done with paper and pencil. They're workbooky kinds of exercises that you would do. Many of you know my background. I'm an educator. I have taught adults with acquired brain injury for well over 30 years now. I teach strategies and compensatory skills to deal with attention and memory and all the various executive functioning skills. So, the traditional model of doing this is really to use paper and pencil and very traditional exercises. The more modern way is to use technology. Now, not everyone's using technology, but it's interesting how the use of technology actually helps with all of these different kinds of skills. So, the way I look at it is apps and devices, whether it's an Android Jan or whether it's an iOS, iPhone, iPad device. One of the things is that those devices are really tools that are going to help you not only learn, but apply a lot of these executive functioning kinds of strategies and techniques. So, we're going to talk today, of course, about the best suite. Another thing that I wanted to mention before we go into the details is a concept that I sort of have been using for a very long time now called making cognitive connections. And making cognitive connections is taking the cognitive skills, the organization, the planning, the time management, etc., and combining that with the technology, using the technology as a tool to help you with those cognitive skills. It's the interaction of the cognitive skills and the technology that I think really can be very, very powerful. Often in that old traditional model of teaching executive functioning skills, there's a delay or a lapse in terms of sort of being able to see, did you make a mistake? Did you not make a mistake? With technology, it's sort of in your face. You can see a lot more. It also is very practical. It's very much your life. So, one of the things that you're going to find with the Best Suite and many other apps that you use is that you are able to put the information that's relevant to you in those apps so that they become very personal. Some of the older traditional models, it was always things that may or may not have related to you. Another thing that's really important about making cognitive connections is that by knowing how to do something in one app, you can often generalize that same strategy, that same skill into potentially other apps, but more importantly, into other areas of your life. So, for instance, if we talk about color coding and using color coding within one of the apps, I'll mention that in just a bit. Color coding can be very helpful for calendaring and organization purposes, etc., on an app or on technology. But in addition to that, those same techniques that you're going to learn are going to also apply to uh, your taxes or to your medical bills. You can use color coding in a very effective way to help with organization. So, whether or not that happens within the technology and then generalizes into a more real world kind of outside of technology example, or whether that's just within the technology itself, it becomes a very powerful tool. And so I'm hoping that through this webinar series with the Best Suite, and also through our executive function webinar series, that you're going to see how these things can relate to each other. Okay. Any questions before we get started, before we kind of dive into the best suite? Um, okay, someone's getting disconnected. Any questions about executive function? I know that some of you said that you have difficulty in some, if not a lot of these areas. Any questions about executive function? How about that traditional model of training for executive function? Have any of you had to go through the, or not had to, have any of you been exposed to that particular model where you're using paper and pencil and worksheets in order to work on some of those executive functioning skills? I'm going to keep my eye on the chat here so I can see. Anybody have experience with that? I can tell you, hopefully some people, okay, Betsy says yes. How do I make it solid routine to use technology? This is, yeah, that's a good example. Um, I did, and none of it made sense to me. So again, one of the things I think that is really important in that more traditional model, which is still being used, and it's not a bad model, please don't get me wrong, but in that more traditional model, it it really doesn't resonate often with individuals. And so the use of technology can be a tool that will become more practical. Doing things on paper and pencil don't often generalize. Doing things on paper and pencil, you can't take it with you. You can't necessarily practice it or use it outside of that environment. With technology, you have it with you all the time. You can make modifications if you realize that there's an error that you might have made. Let's say scheduling a calendaring appointment. Let's say that you put AM or PM, or you did something like that. In the moment, you may see it, you may miss it, but you can always go back and modify that. And this is where I believe technology is so helpful for cognitive skills development. You may make mistakes, but you're going to get feedback from the technology that will help you develop better self awareness. So, all right, let's go ahead and start talking then about the best suite. The Best Suite was designed specifically to facilitate the development and the implementation of executive function skills, which include self regulation, self control, organization, planning, all those different areas that we talked about. The suite actually started about 9 years ago with a single app that was designed to help people with energy and fatigue management. And it's grown from there. So, as we have developed it over the years, thankfully, we have been able to do that and have received some grants to help us continue with that development. We started with the what's now called Pace My Day, and we then moved into some of these other areas, all of which were areas that I could see in the classroom were problematic for my students. And again, all of which really address this idea of executive function. So let's take a look. One other thing about the Best Suite is that the information within the Best Suite gets shared between the various apps available within the suite. So if you enter information in one place and you want to use that information in a different place, it should be available to you. Um, the Best Suite is a working a working app, if that makes sense, meaning that we are just it's a living, working thing. So we are continuing to update it and to make changes. We love your feedback and try to get that information that you provide to us and figure out ways to improve the app. So the fact that it shares information can be very helpful in general with executive function. One of the things that happens is in some apps, if you have to enter it one place and then you need it somewhere else and you have to enter it again, the question becomes, are you entering the same information? Is your attention to detail after the brain injury such that you are paying close enough attention in order to make sure that that information is the same? Often after a brain injury, there's problems with attention to detail. And so it may be that you don't get the information entered in properly, you don't recognize that, and that can cause potential issues. So, sharing information really reduces the need to add information in a variety of different places. All the apps within the Best Suite have a similar look and feel. I've given you 3 different screens here. There's 5 apps in the suite, but I just wanted to give you a sense that they all kind of have a very similar look and feel. They all relate to tasks and activities. Most of them relate to tasks and activities that you're doing. And we approach tasks from different perspectives because, from my experience over the years, that's one of the things is that different people look at activities and tasks different from different perspectives and in different ways. And one of the things that we've seen with the Best Suite is although there might be a way that I would suggest that you use it, our users actually really dive into it and figure out how to make it work for them. And I think that's a really important aspect of any app is that a person can sort of customize it to the way that they need it to work for them. Another thing that we've been able to see with the Best Suite is that it really does help to develop awareness and independence on the part of users. You may be thinking, well, do you have any research? We've done some research in the past that indicates that people with brain injuries are able to learn how to use the app with our online training and stuff. So we've done 4 or 5 studies in that particular area with a small number of people. What we do have is the anecdotal data. We have the testimonials that people have shared, just indicating that they are getting awareness, developing awareness, and that the app is helping them be more independent. So, if anyone out there is a researcher, we would love to talk to you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Pace My Day. Pace My Day was the basic first app that was created within the Best Suite. And these are some of the executive function things that Pace My Day can help with. And I have got the items listed on the left side of the screen. And then we have the executive function skill that's kind of being addressed or relates to that particular item. So the first thing is Pace My Day really helps you plan your day based on how you feel. If you learn how to use Pace My Day, part of the idea is that you are going to assess how you feel in the morning. You're going to plan your day based on, at least initially, those feelings. If you wake up and you have a headache or you're in pain or something like that, you really should plan your day according to how you feel. Now, if you plan your day according to how you feel, let's say that I wake up and I do have a migraine or something like that. If I plan my day out and I only have 2 or 3 activities that I actually plan based on how I feel, I may be able to control, self regulate how things go throughout that day to the point where I don't exacerbate the migraine. And consequentially, I might be able to do some other things during that day. If, on the other hand, I don't plan my day based on how I feel, I may have a list of 15 different things that I want to do, and I try to push through them. And at the end of the day, or at some point in time during the day, I just have to stop because I'm not able to go any further. So one of the things that Pace My Day does is it really does help you plan your day based on how you feel. It can also help you prioritize and sequence activities for the day. This relates to, of course, organization. So once you get your activities on the My Day screen, one of the things that you can do is you can move them around. You can move one task above another in terms of sequencing. The other thing that you can do is you can identify how important a particular task is. All of these things relate to the organizational aspect of executive function. Now, I want to say again, I'm not showing you all the screens for this. I'm just today is really just about giving you a big picture overview of what each of the apps can do and how they relate to executive functioning. Okay. As we go through the rest of the, just checking to see if Christy is available. I think not. As we go through the rest of the webinars, you're going to see the screens and we're going to show you how all of these things work. Okay. Recognizing and tracking symptoms. This is kind of a different perspective that we have with Pace My Day. This really relates to self control. So, one of the things that we have you do in Pace My Day is before and after each activity that you do within the app, it asks you to rate symptoms that you might have, and you can control what you see, which symptoms are, pop up on the screen. But recognizing and tracking your symptoms can do a lot for self regulation. It can help you identify how you're feeling both before you start a task and after you finish a task. You may think cleaning the kitchen is not a big deal because I've always been able to clean the kitchen. And so you go in and you clean the kitchen and you don't recognize because you're not tracking, you don't recognize that cleaning the kitchen really wiped you out and you are now down and out for the rest of the day. One of the things that Pace My Day can help you do as you're using it is it can help you develop those insights that, you know what, cleaning the kitchen, I did it for an hour and I completely wiped myself out. And so maybe next time I need to not work for as long in the kitchen. All of these things are things that you can begin to develop insights and self awareness as you use the app. You may be thinking, okay, well, that's great. So if I use it, then this is all just going to happen and I'm going to see it. I wish that were true. But the reality is, it takes practice. You have to use the app. You have to commit yourself to using the app, to practicing with it, and to pulling that information out of it, to actually spend some time identifying what the information that the app shares with you means to you. Another area that Pace My Day works on is how you actually learn how much time and energy certain tasks take after your brain injury. So that can relate to time management. In addition to that, you really develop self regulation skills, self awareness, etc., and that has a lot to do with mental flexibility. So within just that one app, Pace My Day, I've pulled out 5 different functions of the app, and I've sort of correlated that, if you will, with 5 different areas of executive function. Now, there's many more functions to Pace My Day, and there are additional executive function skills. But in this particular case, I just wanted to kind of give you an introduction and an overview. Any thoughts or questions before we move on to the next app within the suite that we're going to talk about? Is this helping you get a sense of how certain kinds of functionality relates or correlates to executive function? Okay, good. Jan says yes. Anybody else out there? All right. Well, let's go ahead then, and we will go to Strategize My Life. Strategize My Life is, well, I like all the apps because, I've just been with them for so long, but Strategize My Life is really one of my favorite apps. The whole purpose of Strategize My Life is to provide you with a single place that you can enter strategies that either work or don't work for you. And you can group those strategies so you can organize them. We'll talk about that in just a second. But one of the things that happens after brain injury, oftentimes people don't realize that before their brain injuries, they actually use strategies all the time. We may not have called them strategies. You may have called them tricks of the trade, or, you may have thought, see, I have an advantage over so-and-so. In a lot of cases, that all those things that you did were really strategies. They're workarounds. They're things that help you be more efficient or whatever. After the brain injury, a lot of times those same strategies will not work in the same way, or maybe may not work at all. And so, what you need to do is you need to potentially find new strategies, and you need to, in my opinion, rate the strategies based on how effective they are for you. Due to memory issues and some of the other um, cognitive issues that people have after a brain injury, you may try to use the same poor strategy over and over and over again with the same result, but due to awareness and due to memory, you may not remember that you've tried that strategy before, and you may not be aware that the strategy isn't working. So, Strategize My Life is really designed to help you document all of that kind of information. It's designed to help you document strategies, to group them together so that you can find them pretty easily and you know how they relate to each other. And then also to add information and to rate the effectiveness of that strategy. So, one of the things that Strategize My Life does is it helps you group similar strategies. That's organization. That's that executive function skill of organization. Now, one of the things that happens with organization is you may assign a particular thing to a category or to a group, and it may also belong to other groups. So, one of the things that you can do is you can assign strategies from one strategy group to apply it to a different strategy group. What that means is that helps you with the idea of generalization. So, for instance, let's say that you, again, are going to use color coding. And so you have color coding as a strategy, and you have some notes about how you might want to do that. Color coding as a strategy may be great for, let's say, calendaring activities. So, if you were talking about productivity and calendaring, color coding might be a strategy under that group. But color coding may also be effective when you are organizing your clothes in your closet so that you can find things more quickly. So that same strategy would apply to more than one area of your life. And Strategize My Life allows you to do that. It allows you to assign a strategy to more than one group. So that's organization, that's mental flexibility. There's lots of different cognitive executive function skills that apply. Another thing that you can do with Strategize My Life is you can assign strategies to other apps within the suite. One of the things that I mentioned was that all the apps share information. And so, as a result of that, strategies that you put in Strategize My Life are actually available to you in the other apps. So, you don't have to try to remember what strategies you have. You don't have to try to remember which strategies work for which task. You can do all that within the Best Suite. And that's mental flexibility, and it also can save time. You can assign a group to more than one strategy group, which again relates to planning, mental flexibility, and you can add notes to help you remember how to use the strategy, when to use the strategy. And so as a result of that, that's an example of working memory. Okay, let me check the chat here. If there's any questions or any thoughts, please put them in the chat. This is my opportunity to check that out. Let's see, Elizabeth says, this is helping need to practice anew. Okay, I hear you, Betsy. Good. Okay. Any other thoughts about Strategize My Life? Okay. Another app that we have within the Best Suite is Complete My To-Dos. Now, Complete My To-Dos is a task management app. How many task management apps out there are there? Probably thousands. Strategize My Life is pretty unique. There's not a lot of other apps out there that I'm aware of. Pace My Day is pretty unique. Complete My To-Dos, there's thousands of apps out there like this. It's a basic task management app, but we did incorporate many of the executive functioning ideas into the development and into the functionality of it. So, if you think about a task management app, these are tasks that you just need to get done. Take out the trash, mail a bill, get the dog groomed. These are all just kinds of tasks that you would do on a daily basis. Some people ask me, well, what's the difference between a task in Complete My To-Dos and a task in Pace My Day? Well, tasks in Complete My To-Dos are typically very singular. They may be repeating things that you need to do, like pay your bill every month. They don't necessarily take a lot of energy out of you. And they may or may not typically sort of cause some kind of symptom in you. Pace My Day is really reserved for those activities that you know take energy, that you know you need to monitor your symptoms, and that you know tend to impact you. Okay. So Complete My To-Dos is more of just a general basic task management program. But because it's in the best suite and because all these apps relate to each other, one of the things that we have you do in Complete My To-Dos is we have you identify the amount of energy that's required for the task. It's an insight builder. It helps develop self-awareness. If I'm going to write a checkout, then that might be a low energy task for me. But if once a month I have to reconcile my bank account, that may require a heck of a lot more energy out of me. Just having that level of insight can help you with your planning, can help you with your self-control. It can address mental flexibility and a lot of those other skills. Another thing that you can do in Complete My To-Dos is you can include notes and photos for each of the tasks, and you can create projects. So a project might be paint the bedroom and all the different things that I need to do in order to do that project. I need to go to Home Depot. I need to purchase the paint or something like that. And so each of those things relates to organization and working memory, perhaps. Another thing that you can do is set reminders to complete tasks, and you assign due dates for each task. That's all about time management. If you don't have a due date set for a task that you need to get done, the likelihood of you getting it done may diminish over time. And one of the reasons for this is because it's not, without a due date, there's not a priority, there's not a level of urgency to a certain extent that you have. And as a result of that, you just keep putting it off and putting it off. Most things have some kind of time associated with them, most activities or tasks that you need to do. If they don't have time associated with them, guess what? We have a whole nother app that will help with that. So Complete My To-Dos is a task management app where time, dates, not a time of day necessarily, but a date is extremely important. And then we also have the ability to find upcoming tasks based on a basic search, or you can look at upcoming tasks and you can see those tasks that are coming up within the next 3 days, within the next 5 days, within the next week, or you can customize a range. All of that has to do with planning and time management. Okay. Laura says, I use Google Calendar. Can I transfer schedule from there? At the moment, you cannot do that, Laura, but we are working on some updates to the Best Suite, and that is absolutely on our list, our wish list, just as it may be on yours. And so we hope that at some point in time, we will be able to integrate that feature where you will be able to take some information from your calendar and be able to incorporate that into the Best Suite. Laura has a question here. Are brain training apps helpful? Reading books? I'll address that at the end of this webinar if there's time. How's that, Laura? Okay, let's move on to the next app, which is Queue My List. Now, I just said that Complete My To-Dos is about task management when it comes to dates, where dates are important, okay? Queue My List is a checklist app. Queue My List does not care about dates. It doesn't care about time. It's really just a way of organizing your information, your checklists, your activities in a way that you can just simply check them off. So for instance, an example might be a morning routine that you do every morning. And so what you would do is you would put the morning routine in, you'd create the checklist in Queue My List, which is planning from an executive function perspective. You'd create that checklist. You'd add all the items to the checklist. You can include headings in a checklist. So now we're talking about organization. You can reorder the checklist and the items within the list themselves. You can color code headings. All of these things relate to organization. And so as you go through and you do your morning routine, let's say, you can have a heading if you wanted to that talked about preparing breakfast. You could have a different heading within the same morning routine checklist about things that you need to do before you need to leave the house. You would add each of those items. Again, it's not date specific. It's a list of things that you need to do in a particular order or sequence potentially. And you want to be able to check those off. So in theory, you have a morning routine checklist that you have to do before you leave the house each day, let's say. You pull out your app, you check off the different things, it prompts you for what you need to do. You check off those different things. When you leave the house, before you leave the house and walk out the door, you check your checklist, you confirm you've done everything, turned off the stove, closed the refrigerator, whatever it might be. You see all the checks. Now you know that you have accomplished those things. You leave the house, you go to work, you go wherever you might go, and all of a sudden you think, oh my gosh, did I turn off the oven, or did I close the refrigerator, or did I feed the dog? Whatever those items might be. That's a memory issue, right? Guess what? If you go back to Cue My List, if you use it, you can go back to that list. You can see all the things that you did that morning. Can help relieve you, reduce some stress and anxiety. Now, the next morning you get up, you clear the list, start all over again. So I use Cue My List for shopping. I have a list for Trader Joe's, which is a store we have out here in California. I have a list for Trader Joe's. So I have a checklist. In that checklist, I have a heading called dairy, and I have a heading called produce, and I have a heading called frozen foods. And I have all the items that I need to get when I go to the store. I check them and uncheck them. I have my own system, that I use for that, but it's a very effective system, and it allows me to make sure that when I go, I am getting what I need to get. It's not a piece of paper. I was notorious before I started using apps for going to the store. I would have a piece of paper with my shopping list on it, and somehow between leaving my front door and walking into Trader Joe's, that list was gone. And I would spend tons of time trying to find it and would get frustrated. I'd have to call home to find out what the items were, if there was someone at home that could help me. So having that list with you on your phone can be very, very helpful. I think Cue My List is a great tool for that. You could put the list in the Notes app if you have an iPhone, or in some other app on Android. I'm sure that Betsy or Jan can tell us what kind of Notes app they have on Android that might be helpful for that. Let's see. Are you saying you create this checklist each new day if you're clearing? No, that's a great question, Elizabeth. You don't, all you do is clear it. You don't delete it. It stays there. So each day your routine is already laid out for you. You put a check in the checkbox. That tells you that you did it. At the end of the day, or in the beginning of the next day, you simply clear the checks from the checkbox, and now you have your list right there for you the next time you go. That's why it's such an effective tool for me for shopping and for certain routines that I have to do. You could even use it as a way of helping you do certain activities on a computer. If let's say that you need to, I don't know, change something on your computer, and it tends to happen pretty regularly, or you need to remember how to get into your Google Mail when you're not on your actual computer. You could actually have a Cue My List checklist that says get into Google Mail with all the individual steps listed there. You can check those off and know that you have them. Let's see, assign a duration for each checklist item. So another aspect of this is that you are able to assign an amount of time. So if you struggle with initiation, or if you struggle with motivation, if you struggle because you get fixated on something that you're doing, and like let's say that your morning routine, one of the things that you want to do is check the traffic. Okay. And so if you are trying to check the traffic, it's very easy to get distracted by other things, right? So checking the traffic, you might assign as a 2-minute task in Cue My List. And if you go through the process, which I will show you in a future webinar, but if you go through the process of doing that, what's going to happen is when you start looking at the traffic on your phone, it's going to show up and it's going to start counting down to 2 minutes. At the end of the 2 minutes, a little alarm's going to go off telling you you need to switch to the next thing on your morning routine. So often what happens is I'll check the traffic, and then, some news thing popped up, and now I'm off and I'm running, and I sit there for half an hour, not realizing how much time has passed. And so Cue My List can be very effective for that person. Okay. What do you do then if you forget an item for a master checklist you use regularly? I'm not sure what you mean, Betsy, by that. If it's on your checklist, it should be there and you'll see the little check mark that would identify that you've either done it or not done it. So you should be able to see, for instance, if one of the things that I had on my checklist was to feed the dog, okay, my dog Jackson. If I go through my morning routine and I get to the front door and I don't see a check by feed Jackson, I know I haven't done that particular task. Okay. Now, with the best suite, with anything that you do, any strategy that you use, you have to use it. And it takes time to get to the point where you can do it. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. Okay. So I'm not saying that this is just going to be a miracle thing that all of a sudden everything starts working. It takes time, it takes practice. You have to learn how to do it. You have to know what to put into the apps. And again, I'm not just talking about the best suite here, I'm talking about almost any app that you use. Okay. I'm going to, let's see. Jan says not an Alexa. No. So the Best Suite does not work currently with Alexa or with an Apple HomePod. That's a whole nother thing that we may be able to do at some point in the future as we move forward with this. So right now, you can't just say, hey, Alexa, add this to the Best Suite. That would be totally awesome, but not something that we have. So this is something that you actually have to do. You have to put the information in yourself. And that might be kind of a pain and it might take more time, but it's really good, I think, for you to practice that. Because again, the kinds of skills that we're talking about, entering information, paying attention to details, etc. These are all cognitive skills that you really need to develop across the board. You may be able to use Alexa at your house, but you can't use Alexa at the mall and you can't use Alexa at work necessarily. So you really have to develop these cognitive skills in a very effective way. Use Alexa when you're at home or your Apple HomePod when you're at home. But when you're outside of that environment, you have to have some techniques and strategies that will be there for you, be reliable, and that work for you. Okay. It requires thinking these tasks through before listing. Absolutely, Betsy. You have to prepare for this stuff. I wish that, that we could just sort of anticipate what you need, but I can't do that. I know what I need at the store. I don't know what you need. Best can't anticipate that. Now, we do have a library within the Best Suite where we have some pretty generic kinds of things that you can download automatically and that it will sort of populate the apps for you. You'll see that as we move forward through the webinar series as well. We're doing all the things that we can and that we can think of that will benefit our population, individuals that are dealing with cognitive challenges from whatever issue. Could be a brain injury, could be long COVID, could be MS. All of these things are things that we are aware of. As you know, we're a nonprofit. And so lots of these things are on our, boy, we wish we could do this list. And slowly but surely we're knocking them off. So if you're patient with us, we're not going anywhere. I can guarantee that. This is like my little baby. So this is something that I've been working on for 9 years as an app. And again, for 30 years, trying to teach people with brain injuries these skills and stuff. So this is a passion for me. Okay, the last app that I want to talk about is Reach My Goals. And Reach My Goals is a goal setting app. And so if you have certain kinds of goals that you want to achieve, then you could put them into the Reach My Goals app. You're going to see some repetition here. So you can create goals. That, again, is planning. You can include tasks and subtasks. You can reorder your goals. All of that is organization. You can set start dates and due dates and reminders. That's all time management. Working memory is actually remembering to check the items off. Once you've accomplished something, whether that's in Reach My Goals or whether that's in Queue My List, you've got to check those things off. That's a working memory skill. And then finally, recognizing your progress we've actually created what we call a weekly check-in, where you go through the process of sort of reviewing, what did you accomplish this week? What challenges might you have had? You go through this weekly check-in. It really helps with mental flexibility. It really helps with self-control. And by doing it, it actually generates a success journal and a challenges journal so that you can very quickly and easily go back and see a summary of all your successes that you've had within the Reach My Goals app and all of the challenges that you might have had. Okay. How does it give you reminders? So, reminders for all the apps within the suite are set up in such a way where you would set a date and a time, and you would be reminded with a sound. Okay. We have a single sound right now that we use for reminders within the Best Suite. That was intentional. Many years ago, when I first started this, I had a friend record a guitar lick, so just a very short sort of guitar sound. And the reason for that was because I wanted users to know that what they're being reminded of is in the Best Suite. I can't tell. I've been in the post office where a reminder was going off in my pocket and someone else had the same reminder, and we're all looking, trying to figure out whose it is. If you use the Best Suite, you've got that guitar reminder, you know that it's the Best Suite that is talking to you. You know that you need to go into the Best Suite and see what's going on. So we've had requests to give people other options. We're thinking about that. We're trying to figure out how we might do that. But the idea is that that guitar lick that we've recorded is your signal that whatever the thing is that you're being reminded to do is actually coming from the Best Suite. Okay. Let's see. They pop up like a phone reminder. Yeah, thanks, Jan. I probably gave more information. Okay. Another thing that we have is I just wanted to kind of show you. This is it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I just wanted to show you. Strategize My Life shares information. The information from Strategize My Life is available in Pace My Day, in Reach My Goals, and in Complete My To-Do. So you enter it one time in Strategize My Life, and you have access to it from all the other apps. Okay? Reach My Goals, Pace My Day, and Complete My To-Dos. The items or the goals of the tasks in Reach My Goals are available to you in Pace My Day and Complete My To-Dos. Again, you enter them there and you can see them in other places. And then finally, the items in Complete My To-Dos are available to you in Pace My Day. The Queue My List app right now is sort of on its own. There's no integration, although we are working on an integration with Queue My List and Complete My To-Dos and the other apps within the suite. Okay. So you put information in one place and it's available within other places within the Best Suite. Okay. So one other thing, and I have it open for questions here, and our timing is pretty good. So one of the things that I just totally lost my thought. Okay, let's see. Any questions as I try to gather my thought back here? What was it? It was very important, I'm sure. I have no idea. It will come back. Do you guys have any questions about the Best Suite? One thing, again, just to mention, we know that it takes time to use the Best Suite. You have to plan out, as Betsy said, you got to know what you're going to put into it. And that may change from time to time. So there is a responsibility, or it's incumbent in you, or however you want to think about it, to come up with the information that goes in the Best Suite. If you are a professional, there were a few professionals that signed up for the webinar. If you're a professional, this is your opportunity to help survivors of brain injury or those individuals with cognitive challenges. This is your opportunity to really help them put the information that you want them to have, that you want them to take away with them when you are done, when your particular therapies are over. This is what you really want them to take away with them. I was working with a young adult, early 20s, and we were using Strategize My Life. And I was trying to get her to put some strategies and strategize my life. And I asked her if she had any memory strategies. And she said, no, I don't really use memory strategies. Oh, my speech and language pathologist, I think, gave me a sheet that had some strategies on it, but I haven't seen that since I stopped therapy. Okay, guess what I told her? Your homework for this week is to go and find that sheet of paper or, sheets of paper and bring it back to our session next time. She found the paper. We put all the strategies and strategized my life. And now she had them with her. They were actually productive. She could find them when she needed them. It was something that she could use. So we really encourage you, although it takes time and although it takes energy, you don't have to do it all at one time. You don't have to put 50 strategies and strategize my life in one sitting. Put one strategy, put color coding down, put, whatever the strategies are that you use. This is something, the Best Suite is something that you can use over an entire lifetime. You may not need to use it for an entire lifetime. You may not want to use it for an entire lifetime. I can tell you, I use the Best Suite every day for my task management. Some days I use it for my energy. I tend to have good energy, so I don't always have to use Pace My Day, but there are times where I do it. I actually use Pace My Day to track how much time I spend working on different aspects of my life. So it's not an energy factor for me. It's actually a way of me tracking my time. Any activities that I do in Pace My Day actually show up in my calendar. So I can actually go in my calendar and I can see exactly how much time I spent on each activity that I was involved in. So there's lots of different things that you can do within the Best Suite. Again, all of which relate to this major concept of executive functioning after brain injury. Let's see. Is there a spreadsheet or guide to give us some quick start kind of thing? There are some help files in the app itself. And I am going to work on trying to do like a single sheet or a two-sided sheet of quick tips that will just be the instructions on how to do certain kinds of things. We're actually working on some updates to the Best Suite. And we hope that as we work on these updates by the end of the year, you'll see hopefully some updates between now and the end of the year. But by the end of the year, we hope to have made some changes to the Best Suite in terms of certain kinds of flows so that it's a little bit more intuitive and kind of walks you through things within the app itself rather than having to go to one of our online courses in order to learn how to do it. So those things are all part of what we're working on. Amir says, I use Google Keep. Can you help me? Whoops, I just lost it. Understand how this will work, how this will make it better. Amir, if you want to reach out to me, send me an email. I'd be happy to just show you. If you're going to be in the webinars, you'll see it's going to be different than Google Keeps. Oh, thank you. Now I know what I was going to say earlier. One of the things that's really important about the Best Suite is that everything is in one place. So you've got your energy management, you've got your task management, you've got your checklist, you've got your goals, you've got your strategies, all in one app, all in one place that you can go to and you can rely on everything being there. One of the reasons why we developed it as a suite is because in so many cases, you've got 5 or 6 different apps that you need to go to, all of which work differently, look differently, etc. What we wanted to do for our community was to create a single app that had multiple aspects to it that all look the same and worked very similarly. So in that respect, Amir, I think that's one of the things that the Best Suite could do for you is that if you start using it, you have the potential of all 5 apps available to you. Someone asked, would you suggest starting with one app? Absolutely. We always recommend that you start with one app at a time and that you really sort of master that app and then you go to another app. What will happen as you master, let's say, Strategize My Life, and then you go into Pace My Day, what should happen because of the look and feel and because the information can be shared, learning Pace My Day becomes a little bit less difficult than it would be if you hadn't already learned one of the other apps within the suite. So I'm really glad that you asked that question. We do have a questionnaire on our website. If you go to bestconnections.org, we have a questionnaire on our website that you can take that will help you identify, based on the challenges you put into the questionnaire, your responses to the questions. It's going to give you a suggested sort of sequence in which you might want to use the apps based on the difficulties that you have. We have some online training. Christy and I are both educators. And so, we went with the whole, here's an online class, you can learn how to use it, etc. We know that that's not how everyone learns. And we are working now, as I said, on some new things that will hopefully make the app a bit more intuitive, so that what you're not struggling with trying to figure things out with the app if you're not going through the class. But we do have the research that shows that if you go through the online classes, you can learn how to use the Best Suite pretty much independently. It's just the time that you need to commit to that. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. So we know that, we've heard that, and we are making some changes. In the beginning, I want good at using the tool, then slowly I got better, and now it's very helpful. I compare it to learning to ride a bike. Absolutely. And that's how everything, most technology, Amir, is going to be that way. You're going to start off slow. There's going to be some bumps in the road. But as you begin to use the technology and become more familiar with it, it's going to get easier. And that's not just the Best Suite. That's Google Keeps. That's whatever technology you might be using. Lists from certain times and days, like from therapy appointments, tend to accumulate, and soon you are drowning in sheets of paper. Yeah, well, I think that's very true. And so one of the things, again, from my perspective, is to be able to get a lot of that information into the technology that you have really saves a lot of paper. It saves a lot of energy looking for things. And I'm not just talking about the Best Suite here. I'm talking about other apps that you might use. One of the things that we'll be doing probably towards the end of this year is doing some technology webinars that aren't about the Best Suite, but technology webinars that are about other types of technology, note-taking apps and things like that. Will you have a sort of AI component in the future where the app does sense what users want, predicts options? I don't know how. I've heard other people say that, you should incorporate AI. Brain injury is so unique. I know people have brain injuries, but your needs are going to be very different than someone else's needs. I think that our library that we're doing and the way that we're kind of thinking about making some changes to it will actually help with that, Betsy. But I'm not quite sure if someone has ideas on how we can predict what you, as a person with a brain injury, needs. I would be very interested in seeing that. I mean, I have some apps that are AI, and sometimes they're a hit and sometimes they're a miss in terms of being helpful to me. One of the things that we know after brain injury, though, that is change. And if the AI is a miss for you, if it's a hit, it's great. It's going to make your life so much better. If it misses, it can really cause a lot of other issues for you in terms of being overwhelmed and confused and all sorts of things. So I'm not going to look at the AI thing until I'm convinced that we have a really solid foundation upon which to build that particular thing. So in the meantime, we're using what we call a library, and we're providing some standard options for you that you can edit and that kind of thing. So, okay, we are at the end of the webinar here. I did want to mention we have some upcoming webinars. The little brain means that those are our executive function webinars, and the little phone, it means that that is our technology webinars. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have a webinar on attention and memory. And then after that, we're going to have Strategize My Life, and we're going to talk about having executive functioning strategies at your fingertips. We tried to correlate the executive function skill with the app that sort of addresses or most relates to that particular skill. So organizing for your life will be a webinar, and then we'll follow that up in 2 weeks with a Complete My To-Dos webinar, which is really about task management for daily productivity, which relates to organization. So these are upcoming webinars. If you go to our website, which is bestconnections.org, on the homepage, you should see some links to the webinars and you can register if you have not already done so. I also wanted to mention that we are going to be starting a strategic reading group very soon. It will start, I believe, on April 8th. It's going to be on Fridays from 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time. And the strategic reading group is really designed to help people who are struggling with reading, comprehension, initiation, goal setting, insights, etc. It's sort of a little mini cognitive rehabilitation course, and we're going to use a book that was written by a former student of mine. Jacob Green has written an amazing book called See Change Clearly. Jacob is a institutional leader, organizational leader, and he talks in the book about his brain injury. He talks about being in the acquired brain injury program at Coastline and how what he learned in our program has really helped him in leadership. And he gives us lots of really great lessons, not only about brain injury, but about leadership and communication, etc. So he will also actually be joining us for a couple of sessions during that period of time. It's an 8-week workshop. We are going to be offering it for free. We have a sponsor, so we're going to offer this one for free, and we hope to find sponsors for future workshops as we move forward as well. So in your handouts, there's just a quick little webinar schedule so that you can see that. And thank you very much for your time today. There was a poll that we had. If you would take just a moment to answer those 2 questions, I would really, really appreciate it. Did you see how the Best Suite can help facilitate executive function was one question. And did you find this webinar helpful was another question. So before you leave, if you would go in and answer those 2, that would be really helpful for us. We want to make sure that we're giving you the best information that we can and the most helpful information that we can. Any questions before we leave? Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully, Christy will be able to get her technology issue resolved, and she'll be able to join us for our next webinar. Any thoughts or questions before we leave? Tony, thank you for joining us. Jan, thanks for mentioning it to Tony. I hope that you'll join us for some of our other webinars, Tony. Betsy, it was great seeing your name. We need to catch up, see how things are going for you. Anybody else? Annie, it was great to have you from the UK. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this was helpful for you and for your group. By the way, Annie Ricketts and Lisa Hirsch have a nonprofit, Global Brain Injury Awareness. Definitely going to want to check them out. And they have a really great Facebook group called Unraveling Brain Injury. So please check them out. They've got some amazing things to offer and some really great interviews that they're doing with professionals. So please check them out. Yeah, there's going to be an after hours chat. Let me put that in the chat area real quick. Whoops, sorry. I'm going to grab that and I'll put, thank you, Barb, for reminding me. We always have an after hours chat. So if you'd like to join us for half an hour or so, you can join us in Zoom. It's a live interactive opportunity to talk about what the webinar was all about, to ask individual questions and actually see each other. So we will hope to see you in that after hours chat. Oh, wow. Very cool. So Annie knows everybody. That's what I get from Annie. So, all right, you guys, take care. Have a wonderful couple of weeks. We'll hope to see you in our executive function webinar in a couple of weeks. And I would love to see you in the after hours. So I will be there in just a couple minutes.